The massive alien ship appeared over New York without warning on a quiet Tuesday morning in 2157. Its smooth, silvery surface reflected the summer sun, casting strange shadows over the bustling city below. Within hours, every news channel worldwide broadcasted the same message. Humanity was no longer alone. Captain Tom Miller stood at attention in the United Nations Assembly Hall, his decorated Earth Defense Force uniform pristine as he watched the alien delegation walk down the central aisle. Their tall, slender forms moved with an otherworldly grace that made them appear to float rather than walk. Ambassador Gray, as the humans had dubbed the lead alien due to his silvery skin, stopped at the podium. His large, dark eyes scanned the room full of Earth's military and political leaders. "We represent the Galactic Council," he announced, his words automatically translated through a small device on his throat. "We have come to evaluate Earth's readiness to join our interstellar community." The next few days passed in a blur of meetings and presentations. Everything seemed to be going well until the weapons inspection. Miller had been proud to show the aliens the newest Earth Defense Force facility, with its state-of-the-art armory. That's when things started to go wrong. Ambassador Gray picked up one of the advanced assault rifles, his expression unreadable. "You still use chemical propellants, projectile weapons." He set the rifle down as if it might bite him. "How? Primitive." The other council members exchanged looks that Miller could only interpret as barely contained amusement. One of them, a blue-skinned female, actually made a sound that seemed suspiciously like a snicker. "Our weapons are highly effective," Miller explained, keeping his voice level despite his rising frustration. "We've refined this technology over centuries." Centuries. Ambassador Gray's translator couldn't quite capture the tone of disbelief in his voice. "The Council's youngest species abandoned such crude devices over 1,000 years ago. We use pure energy weapons now, clean, efficient, and civilized." To demonstrate, one of the council members drew what looked like a sleek silver tube from his belt. With a soft hum, it projected a beam of blue light that cut cleanly through a metal target. No primitive explosions, no messy projectiles, no recoil. Miller watched as his carefully prepared presentation fell apart. The council members moved from station to station, each demonstration of Earth's military capability earning more barely concealed laughter and dismissive comments. "Look at their targeting systems. They don't even use quantum entanglement. Their armor is solid metal. How do they even move? They still worry about things like bullet drop and wind resistance." Robert Walker, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, placed a calming hand on Miller's shoulder as another round of alien laughter echoed through the facility. "Stay professional, Captain," he whispered. "We knew this might be a tough sell." Miller nodded stiffly, but his jaw clenched as Ambassador Gray approached them again. The alien diplomat held up one of their prized .50 caliber rounds, examining it like a curious relic. "Your species shows promise in many areas," Gray said, his words carefully measured. "Your art is interesting, your music has potential, and your mathematical understanding is adequate. But these..." He set the round down with exaggerated care. "These are toys, children's playthings compared to council technology." "With all due respect, Ambassador," Miller replied, struggling to keep his voice diplomatic. "Our weapons may not be as advanced as yours, but they've served us well. Sometimes the simple solution is the most effective." "A charming sentiment," Gray responded, not bothering to hide his condescension. "But if Earth wishes to join the Council, you'll need to upgrade. We cannot have a member species armed with such dangerous and outdated weapons. What would the other civilized worlds think?" As the delegation moved on, Miller caught snippets of their conversation, his universal translator picking up phrases like quaint, primitive, and barely out of their Stone Age. Walker patted Miller's back sympathetically. "They'll learn," he said quietly. "Sometimes the old ways are best. We just have to be patient." Miller nodded, watching the aliens leave. Something in his gut told him that someday, somehow, The Council would learn just how effective humanity's primitive weapons could be. He just hoped it wouldn't take a crisis to prove them wrong. Little did any of them know that crisis was already heading their way. 3 days after the weapons inspection, the Earth's leaders gathered in the temporary council chamber built inside the United Nations building. The room hummed with nervous energy as Ambassador Gray stood to deliver the council's decision. After careful consideration, Gray began, his silver skin gleaming under the bright lights. We have decided that Earth must meet certain conditions before joining the Galactic Council. He paused, his dark eyes scanning the room. Primary among these is the complete replacement of your primitive weaponry with approved Council technology. The room erupted in whispers. General Adams, a veteran of 40 years of military service, stood up from his seat. You expect us to give up our entire defense system? Based on what? Ambassador Gray pressed a button on his podium. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing a sleek energy rifle firing brilliant beams of light. This is civilization. Clean, precise, safe. The image changed to a human assault rifle. That is barbarism. Explosive powder and metal chunks flying through the air. It's barely better than throwing rocks. Dr. Linda Cole, Earth's chief weapons scientist, raised her hand. Our testing shows that kinetic weapons have several advantages over energy-based systems. They're reliable, require no exotic power sources, and primitive logic from a primitive species, interrupted one of the council members, his blue skin flushing purple with apparent frustration. Your weapons belong in a museum, not in a modern military. Captain Miller watched from his position near the back wall, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He noticed how the council members barely let any human finish speaking before dismissing their points. You have 6 Earth months, Ambassador Gray announced. Replace your current arsenal with Council-approved weapons, or your application for membership will be denied. He lifted a hand to stop the protests. This is non-negotiable. The Earth Defense Force leadership gathered in a side room after the main meeting. The atmosphere was tense as General Adams paced the floor. They want us to throw away centuries of proven technology, Adams growled, for weapons we barely understand, let alone know how to maintain or repair. Miller stepped forward. Sir, I've been studying the Council's combat records. Something doesn't add up. Their energy weapons are impressive, but they've never faced a species that used physical projectiles. It's like they all followed the same technological path. Dr. Cole nodded in agreement. Their shields and armor are all designed to stop energy attacks. Has anyone tested how they handle good old-fashioned kinetic impacts? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the building. Red emergency lights flashed as a junior officer burst into the room, his face pale. Sirs, we're picking up massive energy signatures at the edge of our solar system, he reported breathlessly. The Council ships are going crazy. Whatever it is, it's big, and it's not friendly. They rushed to the main command center, where the Council members were already gathered around their own holographic displays. For the first time since their arrival, the aliens looked worried. Impossible, Ambassador Gray muttered, his usual confidence gone. They couldn't have found this sector so quickly. Who? General Adams demanded. What's coming? Gray turned to face the humans, his silver skin now a pale gray. The Void Collective. They've been attacking Council worlds on the Outer Rim. We thought we had more time. Miller studied the tactical display. The incoming fleet was massive, bigger than anything he'd ever seen. How have you fought them so far? He asked. Not well, one of the Council members admitted quietly. Their shields. Our weapons barely. She trailed off, looking away. Ambassador Gray straightened up, trying to regain his composure. This doesn't change anything. Earth's weapons are still primitive. We'll handle this threat, as we always have, with proper, civilized technology. Miller caught Dr. Cole's eye across the room. They shared a knowing look. Maybe, just maybe, those primitive weapons would get their chance to prove their worth sooner than anyone expected. As the alarms continued to wail, Miller couldn't help but wonder if the Council's dismissal of human military technology was about to become their biggest mistake. The first attack came without warning. On the main screen of Earth's command center, everyone watched as a massive black fleet emerged from deep space. Their ships looked like twisted chunks of dark metal, sharp edges reflecting no light. 3 Council worlds have gone dark, Ambassador Gray announced, his voice shaking. His silver skin had turned almost white with fear. The Void Collective. They're not just attacking. They're winning. The tactical display showed hundreds of red dots representing Council ships blinking out one by one. Their energy weapons flashed brilliantly against the enemy shields, but seemed to do nothing. Captain Miller leaned forward, studying the battle footage. Their shields, they're like nothing I've ever seen. The energy weapons just slide off. Impossible. One of the Council members shouted, slamming his hand on the table. Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy. They cannot simply be ignored. Another emergency signal lit up the room. A Council ship captain appeared on the main screen, his image crackling with interference. This is Captain Firstlight of the Council Defense Fleet. We've lost 3 battle groups. Their shields absorb everything we throw at them. We need immediate. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. General Adams turned to Ambassador Gray. How many ships have you lost? Gray's answer was barely a whisper. 412, in just 6 hours. The room fell silent. Even the Council members who had laughed at human weapons just days ago now stood quiet, their faces showing fear for the first time. Dr. Cole rushed into the room, holding a data tablet. You need to see this, she said, putting the tablet on the main display. We've been analyzing the Void Collective's shield technology. It's brilliant, but it has to be. It's designed specifically to counter energy weapons. Explain, Miller demanded, stepping closer. Their shields are like a mirror designed for energy weapons. They catch the energy blasts and either absorb or redirect them. That's why the Council's weapons aren't working. They're fighting fire with fireproof armor. One of the Council scientists scoffed, but there was less certainty in his voice now. And I suppose your primitive projectile weapons would do better. Before anyone could answer, another alert sounded. This time, the news was worse. The Void Collective has broken through the outer defense line. A tactical officer reported. They've taken 12 more Council worlds. Billions are dead or missing. Their next target appears to be the Council core worlds. Ambassador Gray's legs seemed to give out, and he sat heavily in a nearby chair. This is the end, he muttered. Thousands of years of Council civilization destroyed in days. Miller watched the tactical display, his mind racing. The Void ships were incredibly advanced, but they were designed to fight the Council's technology. They had never faced a species that still used physical weapons. Give us a chance, Miller said suddenly, making everyone turn to look at him. Let Earth's ships join the fight. Our weapons are different. They might work where yours have failed. Absurd, one of the Council members started to say, but Ambassador Gray held up his hand. The Council's finest ships are being swatted aside like insects, Gray said slowly. Our weapons, our advanced technology, is useless. He looked at Miller with his large, dark eyes. What do you propose? Let us retrofit one of your ships with our primitive weapons. A test run. What do you have to lose? The room erupted in argument. Council members shouted about tradition, about proper warfare, about civilized combat. But then another emergency signal came through. Another Council world had fallen. Gray stood up, silencing everyone. Captain Miller, you have 12 hours. Show us what your weapons can do. As Miller rushed out to begin preparations, he heard one of the Council members say quietly, Have we truly fallen so far to rely on primitive weapons? No, Gray replied, watching Miller leave. Perhaps we flew too high and forgot the simple solutions that got us off the ground in the first place. In orbit above Earth, the first human weapons were already being mounted on a council ship. The real test of humanity's primitive technology was about to begin. The modified council ship hung in Earth's orbit, its sleek silver hull now bristling with what the aliens called primitive weapons. Captain Miller stood in the test chamber aboard the ship, facing a captured piece of void collective armor. The council members gathered behind protective barriers, their expressions a mixture of doubt and desperate hope. "This is a waste of time," one council member whispered, not quite quietly enough. Miller ignored the comment and checked the massive railgun mounted on the test platform. Earth's engineers had worked through the night to install it. "Ready for weapons test," he announced. Ambassador Gray nodded from behind the barrier. "Proceed, Captain. Though I fail to see how throwing metal at their shields will succeed where our energy weapons failed. Sometimes the old ways work best," Miller replied, then turned to Dr. Cole at the control station. "Start with the standard rounds." The railgun hummed to life. The first shot was a simple tungsten slug, accelerated to incredible speed. It struck the void collective armor with a thunderous crack. The council members jumped at the noise, unused to the sound of physical combat. When the smoke cleared, everyone stared in shock. Where the council's most powerful energy weapons had failed to leave a mark, the simple metal projectile had punched a clean hole through the armor. "Impossible." A council scientist rushed forward, scanning the damage. "Their shields, they're designed to stop energy weapons. Not a chunk of metal moving at 20 times the speed of sound." Dr. Cole finished for him. "That's the beauty of it. They built the perfect defense against energy weapons, but they never considered old-fashioned kinetic impact." Miller walked up to the damaged armor. "Think of it this way. If you build a wall to stop the wind, it might still get knocked down by a thrown rock." Ambassador Gray moved closer, his silver skin reflecting the emergency lights. "Show us more." The next hour was a display of Earth's military technology that had the council members taking notes instead of laughing. High explosive rounds blew massive holes in the supposedly impenetrable armor. Armor-piercing shells went through multiple layers of void collective protection. Even simple lead bullets from a heavy machine gun left significant damage. "This is why we never abandoned kinetic weapons," Miller explained as the council members examined the results. "Energy weapons are clean and advanced, yes, but sometimes you just need to put a piece of metal through your target." A young council officer rushed into the test chamber. "Ambassador, the Void Collective has taken 3 more systems. They're less than 2 days from the core worlds." Gray turned to Miller. "How quickly can we mount these weapons on our ships?" "We've already drawn up the plans," Miller replied. "With your fabrication technology and our designs, we can retrofit a battle fleet in 24 hours. "Do it," Gray ordered, then faced the other council members. "The time for pride is over. We either adapt or we die." The next day was a blur of activity. Earth's factories worked at full speed, producing ammunition and weapons. Council ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, their elegant hulls being fitted with what would have been called primitive weapons just days ago. Miller watched from the command center as the first fully modified council ship performed its weapon tests. Rails of magnetic accelerators now ran along its smooth hull. Missile pods nestled between its energy projectors. Gun turrets dotted its surface. "It's not elegant," one council engineer admitted, watching the tests, "but it is effective." Dr. Cole joined them at the viewing window. "We've adjusted the targeting systems to account for projectile physics. Your crews will need training, but the basics are simple. Point and shoot." An alarm sounded. On the main screen, long-range sensors showed a Void Collective scout ship entering the system. "They're here early," Gray said, his voice tense. "Are we ready?" Miller checked the status of their modified ship. All weapons showed green. "As ready as we'll ever be." He turned to the council members. "Time to show them why humanity never stopped making guns." The modified council ship moved into position, its new weapons armed and ready. The real test was about to begin. Not in a test chamber, but in actual combat. Now they would see if humanity's primitive approach could save the galaxy. The modified council ship Starbreaker faced the approaching Void Collective scout vessel. Captain Miller stood on the bridge alongside the council crew, watching as the enemy ship grew larger on the main screen. "Enemy vessel entering weapons range," reported the council weapons officer, his hands hovering over the new physical controls. "Their shields are active." Miller nodded. "Remember your training. Start with the railguns." The bridge crew had spent hours learning to use human weapons. Now it was time to see if that training paid off. "Railguns locked on target," the weapons officer announced. His voice trembled slightly. This was the first time in his life he would fire something other than energy weapons. Firing. The Starbreaker shuddered as its railguns fired. Streaks of metal crossed space at incredible speeds. The Void Collective ship's shields flared and failed. The projectiles tore through its hull, leaving gaping holes. Direct hit. The sensor officer couldn't hide his excitement. Their shields, they had no effect against the kinetic weapons. The enemy ship tried to return fire, but its energy weapons splashed harmlessly against the Starbreaker's modified shields. Miller had insisted on keeping some of the Council's defensive technology. "Launch missiles," Miller ordered. The ship shuddered again as a volley of missiles streaked toward the enemy. The Void ship tried to evade, but these weren't energy bolts it could absorb. The missiles struck home, breaking the scout ship apart. Ambassador Gray's voice came over the comm. "Remarkable. Simply remarkable. Captain Miller, your weapons have done more damage to one ship than our entire fleet managed in the last battle." But there was no time to celebrate. Long-range sensors lit up with new contacts. A lot of them. Multiple Void Collective warships entering the system, the sensor officer reported. At least 30 vessels, heavy combat class. Miller straightened his uniform. "Send word to Earth. Operation Thunderstrike begins now." From behind Earth's moon emerged 50 council ships, all modified with human weapons. Each vessel now carried railguns, missile pods, and heavy projectile weapons alongside their energy-based systems. "All ships, form up," Miller commanded. "Remember the plan. Energy weapons to distract, kinetic weapons to kill." The Void Fleet approached, their black ships moving in perfect formation. They seemed confident, having never lost a battle against Council forces before. Then humanity showed them something new. The modified Council fleet opened fire. Thousands of railgun rounds and missiles streaked across space. The Void ship's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper against the barrage of physical projectiles. Multiple direct hits. The tactical officer's voice was full of joy. Enemy ships are taking heavy damage. The Void Collective ships tried to regroup, but they had no defense against this type of attack. Their perfect shields couldn't stop simple pieces of metal moving at incredible speeds. One of the Council gunners laughed as he fired another salvo. And they called these weapons primitive. 3 Void ships exploded as armor-piercing rounds found their power cores. 2 more spun out of control, their hulls riddled with holes from the railgun fire. The rest tried to retreat, but the combined fleet pressed their advantage. "They're running," someone shouted as the remaining Void ships turned to flee. "They're actually running." Miller watched the tactical display with satisfaction. In just 15 minutes of battle, the combined fleet had destroyed 12 enemy ships and damaged 15 more. The Void Collective had never suffered such losses before. Ambassador Gray's voice came over the comm again. "Captain Miller, the Council has seen enough. We're authorizing full deployment of these modifications to our entire fleet. Can Earth's factories keep up with the demand?" "We've been building weapons for centuries, Ambassador," Miller replied with a smile. "We know a thing or two about mass production." As the bridge crew celebrated their victory, Miller knew this was just the beginning. The Void Collective would adapt, but for the first time since their invasion began, the Council had hope. And it came in the form of humanity's primitive weapons. 2 weeks after Operation Thunderstrike, the main Council shipyard above Earth buzzed with activity. Captain Miller watched from an observation deck as dozens of Council ships received their primitive upgrades. What once brought mockery now brought hope. "Fascinating," said Council Engineer First Class Reed, studying the blueprint for a new hybrid weapon. "We never thought to combine kinetic and energy weapons. The possibilities are incredible." The new weapon he studied was a railgun that fired energy-infused projectiles. Earth's engineers called it the Thunder Lance. It delivered both physical impact and energy damage in a single shot. Dr. Cole joined them at the window. "Your energy technology makes our railguns twice as powerful. Turns out we both had half the solution all along." Below them, Council workers installed the new weapons alongside their traditional energy cannons. The ships no longer looked purely alien. They had a unique mix of smooth Council design and sturdy human warfare technology. "The Void Collective won't expect this," Miller said, pointing to a newly installed missile system. "These warheads carry both explosive charges and energy pulse generators." A junior officer rushed into the observation deck. "Captain, Ambassador Gray requests your presence in the command center. We're receiving reports from the front lines." In the command center, Gray stood before a large tactical display. His silver skin had regained its healthy shine, and he stood straighter than he had in weeks. "The Void Collective is retreating from 6 star systems," Gray announced as Miller entered. "Their shields cannot adapt fast enough to our new weapons. They've never faced an enemy that attacks with both energy and physical force." The tactical display showed the enemy's movements. The black ships of the Void Collective were pulling back, leaving Council space for the first time since the invasion began. "But that's not all," Gray continued. "Look at this." The display zoomed in on captured footage of a Void ship. Its surface was changing, growing thicker armor plates. "They're trying to adapt," Dr. Cole observed, "adding physical armor to defend against our kinetic weapons. But that makes them slower, more vulnerable to traditional energy weapons." Miller nodded. "They're learning the same lesson we did. You need both. No single type of defense is perfect." The room filled with more Council officials and human military leaders. On screens around them, reports came in from across the galaxy. Council ships, now armed with human weapons, were pushing back the invasion force. "The Council was wrong," Gray admitted, addressing the room. "We thought advancing meant abandoning the old ways. We forgot that true progress means building upon what works, not discarding it." A cheer went up from the Council engineers as another hybrid weapon test succeeded. This time, it was a human-designed missile with Council energy shielding technology. "Look at that spread pattern," one engineer shouted. "The energy field keeps the shrapnel focused. It's beautiful." Dr. Cole pulled up more design schematics. "We're just getting started. Imagine combining your shield technology with our armor plating, or using your power systems to enhance our projectile weapons even further." "The Council officially requests," Gray said, turning to Miller, "that Earth establish a permanent military science division within the Council. We have much to learn from each other." Miller watched as another Council ship completed its upgrades. Its new weapons gleamed alongside the traditional energy cannons. "We be honored, Ambassador. But no more laughing at primitive technology." Gray's skin flushed slightly silver, the Council equivalent of a blush. "I believe we have learned our lesson about judging technology by its age rather than its effectiveness." Alarms suddenly blared. Everyone turned to the tactical display. A massive Void Collective fleet had appeared at the edge of Council space. "They're making another push," the tactical officer reported. "Looks like they've upgraded their ships with heavy armor." Miller smiled. "Good. Time to show them what happens when you combine the best of both worlds." The newly upgraded Council fleet moved into position, ready to defend their space with both the elegance of energy weapons and the raw power of human kinetic force. The real test of their combined technology was about to begin. 1 year after the first human weapons were mounted on a Council ship, Captain Miller stood in the Grand Council chamber. The massive room, with its soaring crystal ceiling, was packed with representatives from every council species. Today marked both a victory and a historic change. The Void Collective has surrendered, Ambassador Gray announced to thunderous applause. Their final fleet was defeated yesterday by our combined forces. The main screen showed the battle statistics. Out of the 1,000 ships the Void Collective had sent in their final assault, none had escaped. The Council human hybrid fleet had proven unbeatable. To think, a council member whispered nearby, just 1 year ago, we laughed at human weapons. Miller remembered those early days, the mockery and dismissal. Now, every council ship carried what they once called primitive weapons alongside their energy cannons. The combination had changed space warfare forever. Dr. Cole stepped forward to present the final battle data. The Void Collective's attempts to adapt failed, she explained. When they added armor against our kinetic weapons, our energy weapons found gaps. When they strengthened their energy shields, our projectiles tore through them. They couldn't defend against both. The Chamber's attention turned to a new display, showing the latest Council warship design. Its elegant lines now incorporated human weapon systems as standard features. Railguns nested beside energy projectors. Missile pods sat comfortably next to shield generators. But we gained more than victory, Ambassador Gray continued. We learned a crucial lesson. Progress isn't about discarding the old for the new. It's about combining wisdom from all sources. The next presentation showed educational centers being built across Council space. These academies, Gray explained, will teach both human and Council military sciences. Our future defenders will master all forms of combat technology. A young Council cadet demonstrated the new training, switching smoothly between energy weapons and kinetic systems. The Chamber burst into applause again. Earth is no longer a candidate for Council membership, Gray announced, causing a moment of confused silence. Then he smiled. Because as of today, Earth is a full member of the Galactic Council with a permanent seat on the Military Advisory Board. Miller stepped forward to accept Earth's membership crystal, a symbol of full Council status. As he held it up, the crystal glowed with swirling patterns of blue and gold. A year ago, Miller addressed the Chamber. We stood divided by pride and prejudice. The Council thought their way was the only way. We humans thought we had to prove ourselves. The Void Collective taught us all that strength comes from unity, not uniformity. Around the Chamber, Council members nodded. Many wore the new combined uniform of the Council Defense Force, which displayed both Council and human military ranks. In our weapon foundries, Miller continued, Council energy technology now enhances human projectile designs. In our shipyards, human armor reinforces Council shields. We've created something neither of us could have built alone. Dr. Cole activated one final display, showing the new defense system being installed across Council space. Human-designed kinetic weapon platforms stood alongside Council energy arrays, protecting their worlds together. The age of division is over, Ambassador Gray declared. We face the future united, with both the wisdom of the Council and the innovation of Earth. As the ceremony concluded, Miller walked to a viewport overlooking Earth. Council ships patrolled alongside human vessels, their combined weapons glinting in the sunlight. Below, the first Council military academy on Earth was nearing completion, where future generations would learn that no technology was primitive if it worked. Quite a change from when we first met, Gray said, joining him at the window. When we thought your weapons belonged in a museum. Miller smiled. Now those museums have a new exhibit. How human guns saved the Council. And how the Council learned humility, Gray added, though perhaps we needed that lesson even more than we needed the weapons. Together, they watched a new class of cadets practicing with both energy rifles and traditional firearms. The future of galactic defense would never again rely on just one type of technology. Sometimes, Miller thought, the best way forward was to remember the lessons of the past.